Back in the library, athlete builder. I'm your host, Jim Beebe. Today we have the Airy Brothers, Jim and Rich. And so it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to get into their backgrounds in a second, but by and large, usually what I want to do with all our guests is find out more about them, what's going on, give us some information, how can I learn from them. It's selfish on my part. It's my continuing education every Monday night. In this case, it's Wednesday when we are recording, but I benefit from learning from you guys, and we shove all the information out to the world, which is great. What's cool about these two guys is that not only are they very good in their field, which is wrestling, endurance, nutrition. Honestly, it's suffering and doing it with a smile on your face. But they also have their own podcast as well called Aerie Bros Radio. And right now, at this point, they're north of 300 episodes all in. So I'm going to want to ask some more real questions like, hey, based on those 300 episodes, what are some things you found about X or Y? Or what are some commonalities or some themes? So we got Rich and Jimmy, and Rich is the older one by about, 10, 11 years?
Yes, sir, 11 years.
11 years. And they're basically in the sport of pain and suffering is what I like to say. In the short term, intense pain and suffering, there's the wrestling aspect. So they grew up as wrestlers, wrestling all through school. And then there's the long term. There's the endurance and the cross-country, ultramarathons, things along those lines. So background on Rich, since he's older, he's a strength and conditioning coach, PE teacher, worked his way up in college, running cross-country and track, started at the smaller schools, junior colleges, then earned a scholarship at Monmouth. Jimmy went a similar route, wrestling and endurance, also spent some more time on nutrition. They've been through the CrossFit route with their level 1 certs. Rich, being more of a runner, he also has running WOD. He's been on CrossFit staff. The running WOD is now Black Sheep. I'm missing a word, Black Sheep.
Black Sheep Endurance.
Black Sheep Endurance. So it's how you can go about building up as an endurance athlete by not just running. Jimmy had done more. He's done some jiu-jitsu and working with other folks, especially in nutrition. But now has flipped hats, takes on more of a production component with the Aerie Bros Radio, does that full time, and they partner up. They don't seem to fight. I guess they're too old and they've outgrown that. And they work together and they bring on athletes and experts just like I do, trying to do what we're all trying to do here is make an impact. And I've been on their episodes or their show before, episode 256. I can attest to them that they're putting out good content. They're smart guys. They're genuine and authentic and real. And if you listen to them, you're going to get better. So Rich and Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Jim, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. It's good to connect with you again.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for the stamp of approval on Aerie Bros Radio. And I really like to hear that you podcast so you can learn from the experts. So it's kind of our whole thing is we've had master classes with some really good coaches, and we didn't have to pay any money because we had them on the podcast. We just had Paul Check on the podcast. He's someone who we've been following for a decade now, and he charges top coin to go to one of his seminars. We had a 2-hour lecture from Paul Check, so it's the same kind of mindset as you as far as learning from the best and doing it on a podcast.
I'm writing it down. Paul Check. What episode number is that? Any idea off the top of your head?
Well, it's on YouTube right now, so if you just go under our live tab, it will be under there. And I'm going to say when it comes out on audio, it might be past 300. It might be around the 290s.
Gotcha. All right. I'll check that out. Similar to my candy bar story, if you know, back in the day, I wanted to play sports and had to pay for a lot of the stuff with money that was raised. And to get your uniform, you had to sell a box of candy bars. I sold the box, got my uniform, but I also wanted a Nintendo and couldn't get one. So I asked the people that were selling the uniforms. They said they had other prizes, and they said, hey, one's a Nintendo. And I said, how many candy bars? They said 1,100. I'm like, done. So I went and sold 1,100 candy bars door to door, which took a lot more than 1,100 asks, but I got those candy bars sold and got my Nintendo. And so similarly, I wanted Rich to share his story on how he got to running.
Yeah, I would say the 1,100 candy bars for Nintendo might be more enduring than what I did. But yeah, when I was 5, I wanted a fish tank, and I had a lot of allergies and asthma and things like that. And so parents were kind of against me getting a fish tank because of mold and mildew and different things that might come from the upkeep of a 5-year-old maintaining a fish tank. And so my dad was in the Rotary, and lo and behold, they had a 5-mile road race to raise money as a fundraiser. There was a 10 and under division. And in that 10 and under division, the prize purse was a fish tank. So me being the little runner that I was always tagging along to races with my parents because they were still actively racing then. I said, I'm going to get myself that fish tank. And I think, as I look back on it as a 48-year-old, I'm more convinced now more than ever that they probably did that intentionally just to kind of nudge me into that realm of wanting to run more. I think Jimmy and I both say that, we did the sports that we probably had the most success with early on. We were smaller individuals, so things like football and definitely basketball were not really part of the menu growing up. It was things like running or wrestling where there was weight classes and we could compete against people our size, or running where, body size, height doesn't really matter. Whether you're tall or whether you're short, you can still be a good runner. So yeah, lo and behold, I lined up for the 5-mile race. My mom's twin sister, my Aunt Joan, she was assigned to be my pacer, or my, I guess maybe my guide. And probably after the first 2 miles, I had left her in the dust, and she said, "Just go ahead, just follow everyone else. You'll get to the finish line." So I ended up covering 5 miles. I think it was somewhere north of 40 minutes and maybe somewhere south of 45 minutes. So. The rest is kind of history. I did races sporadically from that age level till I got to middle school, and then I did middle school track. We didn't have a cross-country team, so I played soccer in the fall, and then once I got to high school, it was running in the fall, running in the spring, and wrestling in the wintertime. And I was a little guy. I didn't really want to take the leap of faith of wrestling in college. I wanted to save my ears. And so I went the running route, and as opposed to Jimmy, who wanted to get some cauliflower and have some scars to show that he was a tough kid. So he went the college route in wrestling.
Gotcha. So your parents, they planted that fish tank, right? They know you wanted one, so they put it out there and said, "Hey, if you win this thing," and they knew that there weren't many other 5-year-olds or young kids running that race, but hey, if you do this, you're gonna get a fish tank. I like that.
Yeah.
So. Jim, is that true? Like, you just rather smash your head against people on the mat for real intense short minutes versus suffering those 5 and 10Ks?
Well, I think it happened over time. I originally loved running. I found success early. I went to the junior nationals in 5th grade. But like Rich said, my parents were really into running, and they probably knew more about running than they did wrestling. And come 8th grade, 7th grade, I was still really undersized. Kids started hitting those puberty levels, and I was still undersized, and I wasn't able to keep up, and life wasn't too easy for me at 15, 12 with my dad. And wrestling, they really didn't like. I didn't like wrestling because I wasn't as good at it. There was always some kids that were in our local area that would always beat me up, and so I wasn't like, I don't know, I didn't want to wrestle. Like, there was a time where I told my parents I didn't want to wrestle, and that was like, well, you're in middle school, you can't work yet, you have to play a sport in the winter. And then wrestling or cross country came in high school, and I was like completely over that, and I was given the option not to run track my freshman year, and I took that, and I started going to wrestling club every day of the week, and I ran with it. And I started seeing success after freshman year, and I never looked back.
Fundamentally, kids try to emulate or please or make mom and dad happy. Also, like, the environment you grow up in, it's a good chance you're going to replicate a lot of the same things. If you grow up in a Jewish household, there's a good chance you're Jewish, right? If you grow up in a Catholic household, the same deal. If you grow up in a household that eats nothing but poor habits, like at my dad's house, then you're going to be eating nothing but poor habits, right? So if your parents are athletic or into athletics, then it follows suit that you guys are too. And if they're runners, there's some correlation there, obviously. And then, lo and behold, you end up finding some joy and probably some endorphin releases from the running. What is, if you had to pick though, say everything else is the same. There's no cauliflower ears. You can get injured from running. You can get injured from wrestling. You get injured from anything. But you can only pick one. Which is it for you guys?
Situational, Jim. To be honest with you, because running at this stage of my life, I don't need anyone but a pair of shoes, right?
Right.
Running tends to lead to more injuries for myself. If you give me the option to have Rich or a couple of my friends in a garage and we can wrestle, and I don't have to go to a jiu-jitsu gym or a wrestling club, and I can wrestle with my buddies a couple days a week, I'm taking that all day. But it's not convenient to do that, and so running, I can wake up at 4:30 in the morning, put my shoes on, be out the door, and be done with it, and not have to worry about it. So at this point in my life, it is a convenience thing where, if given the option, I guess I would take running. But that said, if I have the convenience of it and I can live in my fantasy world, I'm going wrestling all the time.
Gotcha.
I mean, do I know what I know now? Or...
That's always the thing, right? Yeah, give him what you know now, right? Yeah, what would you, if you can only pick one?
Yeah, I think things would be a lot different on both ends of it, whether it's running or wrestling. I did enjoy wrestling, but, for a lot of wrestlers, when their career comes to an end or their season comes to an end and they don't reach their goal, that sometimes there's some trauma that comes with that. And Jimmy and I both know guys that are probably still haven't dealt with that properly, and that's 20, 15, 30 years ago. I never had that because I always had, I was going off the wrestling mat and I was going right to the track to get ready for track season. And by the time my senior year ended in wrestling, I already knew I was going to college to run. So I always enjoyed wrestling. I still enjoy it. I'm a big fan of it. I just didn't necessarily have the IQ that I might have now for it. So I think it would have been nice to maybe see where that could have taken me if I could have had some more success with that, with developing a little bit more and not trying to maintain such a light weight and actually growing into my body. Hey, maybe I wouldn't be 5'4" right now if I actually ate, at those formative years, so that could have been something in and of itself. But yeah, I mean, like Jimmy said, as I get older, yeah, I think wrestling or jiu-jitsu kind of takes a toll on your body, and it really matters who you're training with, because sometimes not everyone is as cautious or careful with the moves and the holds and stuff. So for safety reasons, I think I would still take the running in the mountains at this point.
Speaking of mountains, for listeners that don't know, Rich did Leadville 100, which is a 100-mile race in highest parts of Colorado, and he did it multiple times, 3 times, right?
Yes,
placing top 5, right?
7th, 14th, and 16th.
Gotcha. And Jimmy, you run some long ones too, right?
I've dabbled. I haven't run any races. Did a backyard ultra before it was even a thing.
Gotcha.
But I've crewed Rich on all 2 of his Leadville endeavors, and we lived there for a year.
You guys follow or see the show on the Barclays?
Yes, we're very familiar with the Barclays.
Yeah. Any? Have you been out there for it?
I have not been out there for it. I have some friends that have started a couple times, but that sort of endeavor doesn't. I get lost in races that have markings, Jim. So when it would come to a race that doesn't have any markings and I have to find a book in the woods with a compass, I would, there's stories of people going, taking 16 hours to go 2 miles. I would probably be one of those people. The only thing I have going for me is that I might be able to keep up with the leaders for the first lap. Mm-hmm. But if I was by myself, I would probably just be chasing my tail, going in circles.
That is a whole different animal. There's a land navigation component that's going to be critical in addition to your endurance, nutrition, all that jazz. So the knowledge piece is it's as important as the running itself. For those that don't know about it, I tell the story every once in a while. And I opened my gym in 13, and I think it was in that year, my brother Eric, he wanted to be leaner, so he started doing some CrossFit at home, and then he joined a local gym. He's been doing it ever since, so made a nice little impact there. But he wanted to run a race with me, and I'm born and raised in Cleveland. I live in Indianapolis. He still is in Cleveland, so Dayton was kind of in the middle. And he asked, "Hey, let's do this half marathon." I'm like, "Cool, no problem." So I've been running for a while, a few years. I've done a few halves and been doing CrossFit and open my gym. So I'm knowing his pace. I'm good to go. And he's running, and he's getting leaner, and he's getting better and getting faster. And the whole goal for me for the race was just to hang out with my brother and have a good time. So we show up. It's the day of the race, and gun goes off. Well, it's pretty cool. There's this B-2 bomber that flies overhead, because at Dayton it's a lot of aircraft and Air Force, so the Air Force runs it. So super neat. And we're running along, and he has his phone on his arm, and it clicks off with his watch and says, "Hey, we just passed that first mile," he said. And I go, "The hell we did, buddy." And if you run enough, you know what a mile feels like. And I'm like, "There's no way." And I looked at my watch. "Yeah, knowing our pace, this is definitely not a first mile." He said, "Well, my watch says it is." I said, "You see that marker way down there that says 1? That's mile marker 1. That means we're not even there yet." And he's like, "Oh no, it's way longer than I anticipated on my phone navigated." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I underprepared." I go, "Yeah, probably." But that's all right. We're just going to enjoy our way and get through it. And it was cool. We finished the whole thing. There's an officer in the Air Force in full uniform handing out the medals. So pretty neat deal. The last time I was talking to you, Rich, you said that you don't run with a watch, right? A lot of
Correct.
people are monitoring their heart rate. They have all the data going on. And one of the components of Black Sheep is that you're a little different. Talk to us a little bit about how that's different, not running with a watch. What are some of the components that are different?
Well, I used to run with a watch, and then I did my first mountain 50K. And it started at 6,000 feet, and it went downhill for 15 and a half miles. And then you turned around and you ran back up the mountain 15 and a half miles.
Gross.
And I had a great pace going. I was pacing myself properly. But then when I turned around, at one point I looked at my watch, and it took me somewhere between 5 or 6 minutes to go a quarter of a mile. And that, coming from mostly a track and road and flatter running, really demoralized me as an athlete. And from that point forward, I vowed that I would never wear a watch, because when you're in the mountains, your pace is irrelevant. It's such a different animal. Like I said, I went a quarter of a mile. It took me 5 minutes because of the grade. So it's a matter of moving forward. I always tell people, you don't have to go fast, you have to go forward. And so one of the things I do with the coaching is I like I said, we talked about, I ran my first race when I was 5. 48, so that's 43 years of experience with running races. And I've been running or coaching for 25 years now. So I use a lot of that experience to help people in their first endeavors with marathons or ultra marathons. And because sometimes it's just so difficult for people to wrap their heads around what they're doing. And I think from a psychology perspective, I'm really good at putting them on the couch and talking them through it and making them, reassuring them that what they're doing isn't as much of a big deal as what they're making it out to be in terms of the magnitude. And so one of the things that we do is, rather than worrying about our pace or our heart rate, we track that data, but I get them to not be so attached to it. And usually, when you're running an ultra, or for most people they're running a marathon, they're going to be zone 2. And so if you're breathing in and out of your nose the entire time, more than likely you're right at the cusp of the upper level of zone 2. Some people might cheat it a little bit and float into zone 3. But But typically, once you have to start breathing through your mouth, that's the cue that you need to slow down to get back into your, what I call your forever pace. The pace that you could run for 26 miles or the pace you're going to run for 100 miles.
Now that pace is based on your cardio capacity. You still have to have the road miles so your joints and hips can handle the pounding, right? There's a strength component in too for holding your posture and your form and your stride, right? So that's other factors that play into it. But in talking about your pacing, everything else equal, if you can monitor your breathing, it's like your governor on your car, keeping you going at a good pace so you don't redline it and blow the engine or stall out either, right? So that probably wasn't always the case for you. You didn't learn that when you were 5. How did you evolve? How did you guys evolve that?
For me, it was realizing that I probably did well in high school and college in spite of the way I was training. Because I was always kind of living in that gray area where my easy runs weren't easy enough, and that impacted my hard workouts or my intervals or my thresholds where they just weren't as hard as or as quality as they could have been because I wasn't recovered from my easy runs. And that was one thing whenever we would go to like a high-end track meet or a race or something where there was professionals or Olympians there, my dad would always ask the, Frank Shorter is a gold medalist and a silver medalist in the marathon for the United States. My dad asked him, like, how do you train on your easy days? Like, he was always asking these people to, like, try to get through to me that I needed to slow down. But it wasn't until I graduated and I was an adult where running really didn't matter. It was more of a hobby where it was like, I don't need to go out and run this fast today. Like, I worked all day. I can just go out and enjoy being on the trail, or I can go out and enjoy running laps around the track, and my pace doesn't matter because I have a job. I'm not going to be a professional. Like, my results don't matter. And so it was when I started to let go of that and let go of results when the results actually started to come.
That's an interesting component, and I have my own philosophy on that, and I'm guilty of this, that if I put in enough work, the worry is that if I don't want to take a day off because I don't want to lose anything, or I don't want to have an easy day or a recovery day or a deload week because I'm going to lose stuff. And it's, in my opinion now, but I'm also 50, right, this year, that I was wrong thinking that I can have these results very, very quickly, right? You don't have these big results quickly, so you don't lose them quickly either. If you build up to a 500 squat and you don't lift for a week, you still got a 500 squat, right? And if you're running 5 minute miles, you take a week off, you're not running 6s, you can still run something close to 5, right? And then there's that piece where, hey, your nervous system recovered, your body recovered, your joints and ligaments and tendons recovered. So now the equation where intensity equals results, if you can be more intense, lift heavier, go faster, then your overall performance then goes up. And I think a lot of people, they get so worried that they're going to lose it, and it's just not the case. It's just not the case. And it's too bad, like, if I knew then what I know now, just like you guys said, that it takes that realization that, holy shit, there is a reason why recovery is one of the blocks for performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you get older, it's one of the most important things. You can kind of skirt around things as you're a young, spry high school athlete. You're pretty resilient, but as you get older, you got to pick and choose your battles, and then you really start to understand the value of a good night of sleep, or proper hydration and stretching, or foam rolling, or massage, all these other things. And it makes such a huge difference. And my quote I love is Mike Bergner's quote, "There's no such thing as overtraining, just under-recovered."
Right. He's a legend.
Yep.
You guys also, you and Jimmy had this point earlier. He said some people that were into wrestling, once they have to, like, retire, maybe they don't go on and play in college, right? Or in college, but they don't go on to the Olympics, so they don't compete on the world stage. They're done, and maybe they didn't win a state title, or they weren't a college All-American, so there's unfinished business, or they feel lost. I didn't win, and their identity is so tied to this one moment. If you guys, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there's a few Olympic moments. In '92, there was a Gail Deaver. She's running the 110, the hurdles, right? Mm-hmm. And she trips. She's way ahead of the pack. She's so far ahead that her stride is slightly off when she hits this last hurdle, and she trips, and she's crawling across the line and doesn't medal, and she's like broken, right? She still comes back at another Olympics and wins, but these people, they sacrifice everything for, that's under 15 seconds, right? When Jimi was talking about this, he said that I kept going. Like, I can still wrestle, I can do jiu-jitsu, I can run. If you tie yourself to how can I win today, mentally, physically, nutritionally, whatever, so that I can have joy and success today and feel good about it and come back tomorrow and then keep going. Because between now and the Olympics, it'd be 4 years, right? And then once that day's over with, if you run your heats and you run the 110 and you're done, then what? There's a huge letdown. But there's still things you can do to win the day that way. So if you can tie your identity to your daily habits and making those wins, then when you get to those mile markers, those milestones, those come and go, you still have reasons to keep going beyond. You don't just plummet off the deep end. You don't binge and gain 1,000 pounds, right? Or start drinking. Where's some things, since you guys weren't wrestling, I gotta believe, with jiu-jitsu and running, you guys still have that outlet. Hey, I'm still winning. I'm still having a good time. I'm still enjoying my health and wellness and fitness, and you're making an impact. Talk about that a little bit for you guys, how you guys have found a way to make it sustainable.
Well, one of the things we ask all our guests at the end of our podcast is, do you have a daily practice or daily ritual? And because we came up as athletes, that's our mine. I don't want to speak for Rich. Those are my daily goals, right? If I can get my little routine done within the first 2 hours of the sun coming up, I know I'm set up for a pretty good day, and I know the barking dogs in my head are gonna, they had their meal, they're gonna lay down, and they're gonna let me do what I need to do for the rest of the day and be productive. And being productive and doing what I have to do, whether it be for work or whether it be for Aerie Bros, or just, checking off those boxes, opposed to not doing anything and being lazy and thinking about those days where I might not have got that done. That's how I do it, right? Is get my rituals in, stay grounded, and focus on what I can do today, opposed to what's ahead in 3 years.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy's right on the mark there, and I do commend him. He's very disciplined when it comes to his daily practices and rituals, and sometimes I might give him the business a little bit about being too rigid with them and having, not having some flexibility when it comes to that. But I do admire that about him. I think it's, you have the shirt on that says "Win the Day," and that's kind of the motto of living moment to moment and not getting too far ahead of yourself or not resting on your laurels from the past. And, you can only control what you can control. And that's really where I try to focus my energies. Sometimes, and Jimmy can attest to this, sometimes I let things spiral out of control, and at the end of the day, it's not something that I have control of. What I have control of is my attitude, my effort, and how I present myself to the world. So that's really the main focus, is just showing up and talking to people. That's another reason why we have the podcast, is we're trying to have conversations with people that we wish would have been presented to us when we were younger, to maybe avoid some of those potholes or pitfalls. And so, especially as a physical education teacher dealing with high school students, trying to really have a a good energy about it where I'm talking to kids the way I wanted to be talked to when I was in high school, because we've probably all on this call or conversation have had teachers. You probably remember the teachers that rubbed you the wrong way or said something to you negatively that impacted you, that stayed with you, as opposed to the ones that like really impacted you. I mean, we all have those as well too, but we all have that particular individual or multiple individuals that said something to you on the wrong day or thought they were motivating you and did it, in a negative way or something like that. And that at 48, still sticks with me. So I'm just trying to be the change and bring some positivity to some kids' lives and set an example for them. Like I tell them now, I'm older than most of your parents, and if I can do this, you should be able to do this, or, hey, you're doing that and I couldn't do that when I was your age. So good for you. Keep it up.
In high school, I had a theology class, and we had to read this book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Mm-hmm.
And, awesome book, amazing fella. He's in Auschwitz in the concentration camps. And one of the points he made was, your last freedom on earth is your attitude. In any situation, you can still choose an attitude. And people were walking towards, gas chambers, and some were upset, some were losing it, but some were really, really happy because they were about to meet their maker, and they were thrilled that this was about to happen for them. And so even in the worst unimaginable moments, you can still choose that attitude and make your life a little bit better, in that piece. The lessons are a lot easier when you're older, but they have never really come that easily when we're younger. Usually they're hard lessons. Your parents will tell you one thing, but you don't believe them until, oh shoot, yeah, if you go too fast, you're going to get pulled over by that police officer, right? You guys have moments where maybe you're on this run, or you're in this training session, or you're in this life predicament where you're in this proverbial dark place, and you're like, oh shit, man, I'm in real trouble here. What are those moments like, and how do you, like you said, Rich, just keep moving forward? What was that resilience moment? What was that piece that you can look back on and say, I handled this before, I handled this race before, I can still keep going?
I think from a life perspective, if I can run 100 miles in under 24 hours, I have the mindset, if I put my mind to it, I can do it. There's just, for some situations or some tasks, it's just a matter of putting my mind to it and beating down the resistance that's holding me back from doing it. But I'm a firm believer, I've proven it to myself time and time again, same with Jimi, that if you put your mind to something, we're going to get it done. And that's one of the things, we mentioned that we've got 300 episodes, and, Tim Ferriss used to say, most podcasters don't get past the third episode. There's one thing that Jimi and I are going to do is, if we're into something, we're going to keep showing up. And we're going to keep showing up until we're not into it. And then you're probably never going to see us again. But while we're into it, we're going to keep showing up. And, we've continued to find guests and have great conversations and get elevated from those conversations that, we started in May of 2019, and we're still going at it on a weekly basis. So that's a testament from our athletic backgrounds of just keep showing up and doing the work, and you're going to be successful.
Anything different you want to add, Jimi?
I don't necessarily know if you wanted kind of a story or situation from like athletics that we use in our daily life, like a lesson.
It could be that, or it could be something like, you're in this dark place for a choice that you made, right? Because there's still a lesson learned there, right?
I feel like because of wrestling, I do my best work in the wrestlebacks. I do my best work after I kind of get kicked in the gut. Two examples I have was senior year, 18th 18th birthday, that was the state tournament, was the day I turned 18. I achieved my lifelong goal of placing in the states, and I also had a lifelong nightmare of not making the state finals come true in that same day. And it was like this tremendous up where I kind of let that up get a little bit too far ahead of myself, and that down was like a plummet on a roller coaster. And I was not in good mind at all. Was not in a good mindset at all. My family was walking through a courtyard, and afterwards in Atlantic City, which is like a tourist town, and we're walking past like a buffet, and there's like glass windows of this whole buffet, and my family's like trying to figure stuff out, and I don't want to be alive, Jim. Like, I hate to be blunt, but I'm just not happy at all. Like, I'm miserable. My like dream just got shattered. And I like walk my face up to this glass, and I put my nose on this glass, and I'm just looking in this restaurant. And this guy over here runs up behind me and pantses me. And I don't have any underwear on, Jim. And there's a family sitting right at a table in front of me. And I like that. Everything in my head just go like, I don't remember anything, right? I pull up my pants and I chase him to we're in the courtyard. I chase him to the boardwalk, and I'm like pissed, and like my mom's pissed, and I chase him, and we get to the boardwalk, and I'm like, and he's like, what are you thinking about right now? I'm like, you pulled my pants out. He's like, good, I did my job. And I turned it on, and next morning I woke up, I got fifth. And then another situation, I'm at the Penn State Open. This is my last year of wrestling in college. I didn't know it at the time, but I'm in this pretty big tournament. First round of the tournament, I get kneed in the face, and I have 6 matches that day, and my eyes just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I lose in the semifinals. And when I lose in the semifinals, I'm ready to call it a day, all right? We're going to wrestle for third, fourth. I really don't need either one that bad. I had a buddy there who was done wrestling college, and he was coaching me, and he was like, no, bro. He's like, you go out and you get pinned like a man. Like, you don't quit. Like, you get pinned like a man. Like, you're good enough to wrestle. It's your eye. It's like, it's not going to hurt you. So I go out and I wrestle this match I really don't want to wrestle. And guess what, Jim? The kid I'm wrestling wants to wrestle less than I do. And I can't do anything wrong. It's like a lucid dream. I think of a move, I'm hitting on this kid. I'm like shooting free throws. I'm crushing this kid. I can't do anything wrong. I wind up beating this kid. I don't think anything of it. I just think, oh, that kid's broke until I beat him. Fast forward 8 years later. I'm sitting at home. I'm not really happy with my situation in life. I'm just getting back into training, but I'm not. I'm living with my parents. I'm like 27, and I'm not too stoked about where I'm at in my life. And I'm kind of, what Rich was saying, kind of thinking about coulda, woulda, shouldas. Should have stayed in school doing this. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I see that kid. I'm watching the jiu-jitsu tournament, the big jiu-jitsu tournament. Guys are getting paid to compete. Next match on deck, I see that kid who I beat in that match that I couldn't miss a shot. I see him fighting on this tournament. And that was my, like, all right, I'm going to California. I'm going to chase the jiu-jitsu dream. Like, he's out there doing it. I'm going to go do it. So I've always learned that, you know, you get pinned like a man, right? Win or lose, you sign up for the competition. You might not be having a good day. You get across the finish line as long as you can breathe and walk across that finish line.
There's that word. It's one of our core values, and it's from Finland. It's their mantra for the entire country and all their citizens. And it's sisu. It was the first tattoo I have, and that's what you just talked about there, that even when you're at your worst, you just keep going. It sounds like with you guys, and similarly what I tell my athletes, it's good to have something on the calendar. It's good to have something, a target. Even if you're just running, hey, I'm going to run this 10K or whatever, or I'm doing this jiu-jitsu tournament. You're not necessarily going to win anything. You're not going to get any money out of that stuff, but it just kind of keeps you honest. It's another form of accountability. I have to perform in front of folks, right? And if you got a kid, like, oh shoot, my kid's there, he's watching me. I don't want to look like some schlep in front of, daddy can't look like that, right? You guys still have a little events on your calendar every once in a while just for fun, but it kind of like keeps you honest a little bit?
I have to. I mean, Rich competes. I don't compete, but I have to have something after the next one. Like I graduated last May, and Rich could tell you I was not the easiest to deal with the past year, trying to figure stuff out, get into the field that I went to school for. I need to have something. I can't have those plateaus, or I just become crazy in my head. And I know Rich is the same. He likes to compete though.
Yeah, I just did a 50K 2 weeks ago, and then I have trail marathon in end of August, and a 50K in October or September, one in either a marathon or a 50K in October, and then the plan is to run 100 miles in November.
No little 5Ks?
Those hurt.
No little fun runs? The 5Ks, you probably ratchet down your speed so much that you're really pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of burn, It's a hot, red hot burn as opposed to like a dull sort of mental bender, when you run 100 miles, it hurts up to a certain point, and then it doesn't get any worse.
Yeah.
You get to a certain point, you're like, okay, it's not going to hurt any more than what it hurts right now, and that's kind of where the strength training and stuff comes in. You strengthen your muscles, and they don't break down as quickly, and you don't get as sore.
One of the guys we had on, he's an athletic director at a legit high school down in Evansville, Indiana, and a friend of ours, and coach football, coach track, and you talk about on the shorter distances, the 400 meters being the man's race, and I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, for the 100, honestly, you could probably run it, he said, without even breathing. It's 10, 12 seconds. Or, you can hold your breath the whole time if you wanted to. But the 400, you're holding this threshold of pain and misery. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's still like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, with the younger kids. And then I saw Without Limits. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, yeah.
And Prefontaine, they're talking about the 5K, the 5,000. And you look at their times per mile, and it's like, oh my God, one lap is 66 seconds. It's not far off the miler's pace for running the 1 mile. You're probably running 57 and 58 at that point. I'm like, you only get an extra 9 seconds, 7, 8, 9 seconds for 3 miles. And I was like, yeah, that sounds miserable. So I got to believe that even if you're running longer, hey, at least you can breathe and hold it. Now, you mentioned strength training for endurance. It still seems like today that's almost frowned upon, looked down upon. People don't know what the hell you're talking about. But talk about your thoughts on strength training and performance for endurance athletes, you guys.
I think it's getting better. I think it's hard to be an endurance athlete or a cross-country or track coach and not do strength training at this point. I just spoke yesterday at the South Carolina Coaches Association down here, and I did a talk on strength training for cross-country runners. There's about 30 people there, and so it's definitely getting better. I talked to the coaches about the most bang for your buck. I'm a big proponent of Windler 531. From a high school athlete perspective or a college student perspective, I would probably avoid something like bench pressing and focus more on pulling, just because of the amount of technology that causes internal rotation of the shoulders, which then can impact trunk rotation. So, but squat, deadlift, press, lunges, step ups, those are the key components. I think that I talked to them about, a lot of rotational work and those sorts of things. Those are the things that they should be working into their warm ups and their cool downs. There's no need to have high school kids doing static stretching. I don't think if you're doing strength training with them, you're gonna touch on range of motion and improve mobility. And you can work on working through different planes of motion when you're doing your rotational work and different stuff, and that should all be dynamic, and it should be for the warm up and for the warm down.
Yeah, man, Roger that. Like when I opened my gym, I was going to I started at a different CrossFit gym just so I kind of, learn, and then got certified, and then still like intern there. And I'm like, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of lifting in some of these gyms, and it's still a component. And I started, who was it? Their mantra is eat the week. They had CrossFit football.
Oh, Power Athlete.
Power Athlete, right? Yeah. So I
Wellborn.
listened to
John
them.
Wellborn.
Yeah, John Wellborn, exactly. And then West Side. And I'm like, I just need to learn the basics. I'm still at that basic level. And a lot of my athletes are just soccer moms and dads, so the basics work well for them. So I just used Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 for like 3 straight years and didn't plateau. And then same with those same athletes. If it's the basics, you're doing the basic lifts, your body's getting stronger, and you're adding a conditioning piece that's complementary, and then maybe a few accessories. Like that's the business, that's the model, that's your basic program, and you're good for several years. And that 5-3-1 is very, very simple and effective. I love that piece. I find with the runners, if you're stronger, then your ligaments and tendons can handle the pounding a little bit better. Your posture doesn't cave in because your back and your core is strong enough to hold that optimal pose. And then it's still a game of physics, where force is mass times acceleration, and exerting that force into the ground. If you have that leg drive, then you can do more things. And I think you put all that together, ta-da, you're a better runner. What I tell folks, though, is, hey, pretend I'm full of shit. Maybe I don't know a thing. And maybe Rich and Jim, maybe they're dumb too. All right? Go get your own data. Don't lift at all. Then go ahead and lift for a year. At a younger age, like you got a year that you could burn where you can still do the normal running, but you added lifting in. Go see for yourself. Go get your own data. If you don't want to if you don't think you should have a deload week, well, how do you know? Do a deload week and see how you feel. Have that data, right? And then decide. With all these episodes you guys have, I'm looking for common themes, commonalities. When you're talking to these coaches and athletes, some commonalities on mindset, perseverance, things like that. What are some things that you guys have learned over the years? If you guys are putting together a montage of the best of Aerie Bros, and you really don't have the time to research it and look it all up and look at all your notes, so it's just what's up here right now. Things on mindset. What are some tips and tricks you guys picked up from those guests and all those hours of interviews?
Rich said it prior, attitude and effort. I think any good coach across the board, any father who has a kid that's getting into sports and doesn't want to be that crazy father, they're all going to say, I don't measure performance outcome. I measure attitude and effort. And Rich and I say all the time, man, if we would have took that on our athletic career and only worried about our attitude and our effort, there would have been a lot more happy days on my end for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes along with what Jimmy said, the same sort of thing. But a lot of from the coach's aspect is enthusiasm, and having the mindset that, and it's good to relay this to the kids or the people in the gym too. It's like, it's not I have to do this today. It's I get to do this today. Like we are all blessed that we get to come here and we get to train or we get to go to a race and perform. We get to do this. This is a privilege, and we should have the enthusiasm to do it. And like Jimmy said, do it, and put forth your best effort. If you can walk away from it, win, lose, or draw, and you've put forth your best effort, we can be happy about that. And if it's a win, we can celebrate it. And if it's a loss, then we can analyze it and dissect it and figure out how we can get better moving forward.
Jim, to add to that, to what Rich just said, gratitude. That is another thing across the board. Any high performer, not necessarily coaches, just people who are tops in their field that we talk to. Gratitude is that magic key to turning a bad day into a good day. You talked about Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Shout out to James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. He mentioned that on a podcast episode with us. But that gratitude, I know for me, when I'm not having a good day, if I can be grateful for the fact that I got to go for a walk, I had food in my belly, I have a bed to sleep in, I have a brother that loves me, I have a family that loves me, I have people who listen to a podcast that I put out. If I can get those 5 things on paper or my note, I did all right for a day, and I can smile about something.
When you're not grateful or you have a negative attitude, and I'm absolutely tremendously guilty of this, or you're angry or stressed, you tighten up. Your muscles get a little bit shorter, right? Your range of motion is worse. Your ability to be intense is worse. So your mindset isn't there. I remember, I'm a terrible golfer. I don't really golf anymore, but back in my banking days, I would golf. And if I'm having a great day leading up to it, I just shoot a little bit better, right? And if I'm going into the gym and I'm like, hey, man, it's squat day, best day of the week. I got my training partners here. We're all going to get after it. I feel well rested, had a good weekend. Not a lot of, you just perform better. And so you might come in one day, because I was telling you guys before we started recording that on Monday, a whole bunch of things went south at the end. But I still went back in my notes, and I'm like, still had some wins. So when you go to bed, you still have some wins. So then you're like, all right. And you end up sleeping a little bit better because you looked at a few wins. You're not going to bed pissed off and angry, or upset. I got to imagine at some point you guys aren't feeling the best, right?
Sure.
How do you get unstuck?
So to your point about your muscles get tight, I'll even go a little farther and get a little woo-woo for you, because I like to do that. But that is my heart closing. That is, I'm closing my heart. I'm not grateful for anything. I'm angry. I'm only thinking about what I don't have. And there's a breathing technique. Shout out to Jesse, the language of breath, heart coherence breathing. And 5 in, 5 out, in your nose, out your nose. You do that for 15 minutes, you're gonna loosen up, you're gonna open up, you're gonna open your heart. And if you get super woo with that connects you to the frequency of everyone around you and the coherence of the unity of people. So that's my technique these days. I try to get that coherence breathing. It might not look like in real time, it might look more like 5 minutes, when I'm going through my day, trying to be focused. Someone asks me a question, I'm trying to breathe through my nose. But that's what I try to do. I just try to focus on those long, deep breaths and try to do it from the center of my chest.
Nice.
Yeah, I would just add to the breathing techniques. I don't necessarily do what Jimmy does, but breathing definitely does help. Meditation, since 2011, has helped immensely. And then in addition to that, there's a meta meditation. And so typically what I do is when I get in on I call it the hamster wheel, where you're just having a conversation from a business deal or a relationship or something, and you're like going through how you should have said it or what you wanted to say, I'll catch myself and then I'll just, to whoever that person is that I'm having that conversation with in my head, I'll just say, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be in peace, or may you live in peace. And that kind of, it might only be for like 30 seconds, but sometimes it gets it out of there. But if it's only 30 seconds, I'll do it again. But typically that's kind of how I deal with those situations, is I'll kind of say a little, have peace with it and move on with it. And some days are definitely better than others, but having a solid meditation practice for 14 years or 13 years now has been really good at catching myself on that hamster wheel, because there would be times where before that I would go for a run and I would be done with my run and I wouldn't even have, like, oh, I just argued myself with someone that doesn't, someone's living rent free in my head right now for the last 8 miles and I didn't even enjoy that run.
I've done that where I'll go work it out in the gym and I'm still mad as I'm lifting, and I'm lifting decently, right? And I'm like, man, focus on what's going well right here, right? And then I'm like, all right. And then I almost need this out-of-body experience where I have to slap myself and say, hey, dude, come on, right? Ray Dalio has put out, I think, 3 books, and there's one on principles. He created Bridgewater, which ended up being like the largest private equity investment management firm in the world. He started in his garage. And so they manage billions and billions of dollars, and he's brilliant at creating that kind of structure. And what he says, there's never really just one thing that makes people really pretty good at stuff. There's a lot of things. But if he said if I had to pick one thing, it's that he would meditate at times as much as he could twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. It would calm himself down and would help him find focus and clarity. And so things that weren't really priorities would drift away, and then he can focus on the priorities and keep moving forward, or we have new creative ideas. And he attributed the success of something completely different than strength and conditioning or performance in athletics, a financial world. It was just based on meditating twice a day.
It's a game changer.
Right?
It clears the pop-ups, right? Computers, if it doesn't have the software, you get those pop-ups.
Yep.
Days I meditate, I can watch, or the clouds, right, going past you in the sky. I can watch pop-ups come up. I can watch the clouds. If I don't meditate, I chase those pop-ups. I chase those clouds.
Yep. What about teammates? When I look at an athlete, there's the athlete himself, and then there's the people on the court or on the field with him, right? Those are teammates. But there's also the leadership team, the coaches, which is you guys are in that role. But you guys have also been athletes, right? Then there's the support team, right? Your parents have to get you to practice. And then if you're in college, there's the trainers and the GAs. And some of those kids, their jobs are to pick up all the dirty practice uniforms and put them in a bin and go wash those, thankless jobs. And when you're talking with these other folks on your podcast, what are some commonalities of how people simply work with other people, right? The winners, they work with other people at a higher level than the ones that are whining and complaining, right? So tips and tricks, habits for those winners dealing with their teammates, whether it's the support team, the leadership team, or those on the field and court.
Well, to start off, I was a horrible teammate as I get older in life. I was always a big fish in a small pond, and there was a reason for that. I did good in those environments. I did good on the teams that were the Bad News Bears, where I was the top gun or one of the top guns. I did not do good when everyone was at my level or better. I was not the kind of teammate at a tournament that would go and cheer on other people. I was all focused on myself. Now, as I get older in life, as we talk to these coaches, that's where being selfless comes in. That's when it's not all about you, right? You see there's a bigger scope to the world. And I think because my selfishness growing up, it made some things a lot harder for me as far as having relationships, keeping it in touch with older teammates and stuff like that, because I was always just focused on me. Now, as I get older, as we have a podcast, as you're trying to build a community, now you see where that stuff comes in. Now you see where you got to help other people up. Now you see where you got to clap for the guy who just won a match who never wins a match, or a kid who came in last in the race but he still finished the race. Like, we have to we live in a culture where everyone gets a blue ribbon. I understand that's not good, but also we got to give everyone their dabs, right? When I've run road races or I'm at the ultra marathons with Rich, and you see the people that are working the aid stations, right? Those people need a ribbon. Those people need a, hey man, thanks. Without you, these people aren't keeping going. Or we've all been having a bad day, right? And someone gives us some words of encouragement, and it gets us across the line, right? And Rich, I'm going to steal your thunder right now, but when everyone does better, everyone does better.
Son of a gun.
and that's what we try to kind of live by, and that's what we try to base our podcast off of. And one of the things, besides giving the youth all these cool colleges and all these cool coaches and tips and tricks, we all got to, rise each other up. We all got to help each other. If everyone's doing the best they can, then man, that's going to be a good world to live in.
You're right on the money there, Jimmy. Anything you want to add there, Rich? Or do you just take it all from you?
I mean, he took a lot of it. I would say I was a good teammate. Maybe not all the time, but I spoke about this yesterday. One of my fondest memories as an athlete, and it's not a trophy or a belt buckle or anything that I ever won, but one of my proudest moments as an athlete, I was on campus at Monmouth University as a transfer junior, and I was there for one semester for the fall in cross country. And then when we went back to school, before school started for the second semester to get ready for the indoor track season, I was voted captain of the track team. And that was just a testament to, I guess, my motivation factor with a lot of people, and my intensity, and really wanting everyone to be successful. And then that year, in 1998, that was the first year that Monmouth University had won a conference track and field title in school history. And then in 1999, I was captain again, and we won another title. And then from there, my coach went on to win like 30 outdoor track and field titles, indoor and outdoor, one of the most successful track and field coaches in Northeast Conference, and then the MAC Conference, Coach of the Year and all that stuff. So that was kind of, again, it's not a trophy, it's not a PR, it's not a belt buckle or anything I ever won, but most people don't know that. But that's kind of one of my proudest moments as an athlete, was being voted a captain and not really even been on the team that long.
So your coach ended up being the Bill Bowerman of that Northeast Conference, essentially, right?
Yeah. I mean, the school was pretty much at the bottom of the conference when he got there, and within 2 years he had turned it around and won the first men's title. And then it wasn't uncommon for the men's and women's team to win both the indoor and outdoor conference title.
Dang, that's awesome. And it comes back to that word that I used when I was introducing you guys, and it's impact, right? You seem to be proud of that. You made an impact on this guy, this team, this individual, this university, and that leaves that legacy, which you guys seem to be, about. I wrote about that component in my book that's coming out, and just follow along with me and be patient. But if you're let's say you're starting point guard, and you're the star, so you're the best at it, you're running with the ones, and you get hurt. The tendency, I think, for most folks is that when they go down, they're worried about losing their job, right? Wally Pipp scenario, someone takes over, the two moves up, he's playing better, he's playing real well, you don't get your job back, right? That's usually the fear, the concern. It's why Brett Favre doesn't really want to coach Aaron Rodgers that much, right? And if you were already better, if you're already at say, if you can see this level, this probably isn't where you wanted to be yet. You probably envisioned yourself, a little higher, metaphorically. You want to be better. If while you're injured, you can get that number 2 to be even better than you were, when you come back, you are then forced to do what? evolve,
Get
right?
better.
Get better, right? I gotta be stronger, faster, smarter, know the plays better, right? So be a better shooter. So you're gonna elevate yourself because you're chasing now. And so now you're at the point where you already wanted to be. You wanted to be better than where you were. And this other person, you got better while you're taking a seat, now gives you the target, the carrot to chase after. And then if you can beat them again, well, now you guys are even better as a group, right? You get a better shot of winning. And I think if you look at it like that, it's a lot more enjoyable and it's a little bit more sustainable. When you don't, your ego gets in the way, your fear gets in the way, and then you're angry and pissed and worried. And next thing you know, Jimi says your heart closes down, right? And then you're worse, and your team is worse. So if you can look at it like that, which, man, it takes a high level of maturity, because I'm like, oh, man, damn it, I got to do this now, right? So, and there's no way I would say I had that maturity at a younger age. I'd have been pissed, right? But if anyone's listening and they're younger, I'd say, just look at it like that, right? There's a gift of that injury that you can evolve. If you ever watch West Side versus the World, my opinion, one of the most fun documentaries out there. Have you guys seen that?
That was Louis Simmons, yeah.
All right, Louis Simmons, right? So
Yeah.
it kind of chronicles life at West Side Barbell in Columbus. And those guys, it's invite only, but it's free because you're that good. And then if you're a 1,000-pound squatter, you're going to be around other 1,000-pound squatters. And when you're around 1,000-pound squatters, you're going to be an amazing squatter, right? It's the same deal. The rising, like you said, Jimi, taking Rich's thunder, rising tide raises all ships. How about in your moments on the show and you're like, man, Jim, you will not believe this one story from this one guy. Or you will not believe it. We had this one moment. You know, you're at 300 episodes. So there's got to be a few where we're like, holy shit. Jim, sit back, wait until you hear this one.
Good or bad?
Well, I'm kind of a masochist, so I'll start with the bad one first, and you come up with a good one,
Good.
You know, to end on a nicer note, I guess.
Gotta give him the SP.
I was gonna say Mike Colleen, but SP's a good one too. Yeah.
I think SP is a better one.
All
I got
right,
time for two.
All right, you give him the SP, Rich.
Okay, so this is when we were still in the early stages at the radio station, had the studio and all that stuff, and one of the things Jimi did for a side hustle, Jimi and I, we would deliver furniture on Saturday and Sundays. And we would load up the truck with furniture, futons, couches, whatever, and then they would give us the directions or the locations, and then we'd be like, all right, we'll see you after lunch or whatever. And so it was really good. We got, we would talk about the podcast, all this stuff. Anyway, we go deliver this couch. It's a younger gentleman, and we start chatting it up or whatever, and
He had a wrestling shirt on.
Oh yeah, because he had a wrestling shirt on. So we started talking, and it turns out he was working for Kroenke Sports. If you're not familiar, Kroenke Sports owns the Avalanche, the Nuggets, the Rapids, and then the Mammoth, which is the lacrosse team. And so he's pitching us on. He's like the MC. He's the host. Like, he's the guy on the mic that like gets everyone fired up, and the commercial breaks and yada yada yada, all this stuff. So we're like, dude, you would be perfect. Would you want to come on the podcast? Like, he's like, yeah, he just moved from South Carolina. Like, he's got this crazy story. So he's like, yeah. He comes in, and Jimi and I, we think we're having a great episode because this kid has a cool story about, just coming out, showing up at the offices and pretending like he had an interview, getting his foot in the door, and then ending up getting hired. He's got this great story. So we're like, that was a great episode. And as he's leaving, he goes, man, I hope I didn't say anything I shouldn't have said. And we were like, oh, dude, that was great. You got an awesome story. Like, it's inspiring. It's motivating. Like, people are going to love it. So.
Oh no.
Oh, yes, Jim. Oh, yes.
So, we edit it. We piece it all together. And we're like, this is gold. People are going to love this. So we put it out, blast it out. And then probably within, a few hours of it being out, I guess he actually promoted it as well, and some of the people that he worked with listened to it, And apparently everything that he told us was like a complete lie. And he wasn't like the main MC guy. He was just like a guy that shoots the T-shirts with the guns and hands out the hats for Hat Day. Like he made it out like he was the main guy. And I guess he aggravated a bunch of people that were above him that were doing those sorts of jobs. So he got called into the head Cronky Sports, and they're like, "What are you doing, dude? You're basically you're lying." And so then our social media on the back end, the direct messages and phones just started blowing up, and he was like, "Hey man, we got to take this down. We got to take this down. We got to." And after much deliberation and much annoyance for 24 hours, we ended up taking it down. And and so that lives on our Patreon, so people can listen to it if they want to listen to it.
Didn't we put it out last summer?
Oh, yeah, I think we might have re-released it. I think we might have re-released it like 2 years later because we were going on vacation and we needed to fill something, and so we called it like the Lost episode or something and put it out. But that was pretty much right before the world went sideways, and I think that young man ended up going back to North Carolina or South Carolina. He didn't last very long in Denver.
Well, there's no bad publicity, right? P.T. Barnum would
No.
say, right? And if everything's blowing up, that's probably a good thing. Dang.
So, Jim, I got another in-studio episode, but it's not the one we were talking about. It's a little funnier, maybe a little bit better ending. But, so like Rich said, we started at the college radio station, and it was cool. It was had old school kind of radio station feel on a college campus, and we're sharing with other students, obviously, right? And there's kind of like a rotation. But Rich and I, like Rich said, we like to show up, and if we're into something, we're going full bore. So that first summer we were there, we were in that studio like 3 days a week, and we were in the actual studio, 2 to 3 days a week recording. And for the most part, it was cool. No one really had any issues with it because we were working hard. The studio wasn't being used, and we were on the up and up. Like, when we do something, we do it correct. We follow the rules. That's just how we are. We tend to have or try to have integrity and do things right. So we were on the board for everything. We were scheduling with the people we need to schedule. Well, there were some people in that station that didn't do that. They were, seniors in college. They had been there for 3 to 4 years, and it was kind of looser because when they started, it was under different administration, and they were allowed to come and go wherever they want. And one particular gentleman, he liked to throw his weight around. He was older than the kids in there, but he was still way younger than me and Rich. Way younger than me and Rich. Rich was probably like 15 years older than him, probably more. And I was older than him. But we both look relatively young, so people might think, I'm a college kid's age. So we have a guest, Drew McManus. Shout out to Sat Song. He's a singer-songwriter. He's an artist. He was in town for the Arise Festival. Man, he was already on the podcast once. He was coming for an in-studio. We were super stoked. I had just went, and I had picked him up in the parking lot or whatever, brought him in. He, got his backstage passes at Arise and whatever, and we were doing a podcast leading up. Well, this gentleman came in, and we had scheduled this like a month in advance, and he decided he was going to try to throw his weight around. And he was messing with the wrong two dudes, and Drew was just getting into Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. So Drew, I didn't know Drew was ready to back us. So we're getting ready to go in here, and he's trying to like overstep his boundaries, telling us he's got the studio booked, whatever. And the lady who had booked us, she had just left. There was another lady who was in the graphic arts department in like a little office who was like supposedly the one in charge. And he started kind of like trying to pull his weight, and it wasn't happening. So he called the manager of the studio, who we were in with. He was my age. He liked us. We hung out with him on the weekends and stuff. So he called him, and when he was trying to like tattletale to us, he called us young gentlemen, young men. And at that point, I was like, deal with it. At that point, Rich got up, and Rich was like, young men? He's like, I could be your father. And Rich, like, goes up and, like, gets in his face. Now, the lady in the graphic arts department, she, like, runs out, and she's, like, screaming. And I get up right behind Rich, and Drew gets up right behind me, and we're ready to beat this dude. Like, straight up beat him. And this lady just starts, like, screaming, and it kind of, like, scares everyone and kind of, like, all right, we're going to go in, we're going to do this podcast for an hour, and, like, we're going to get out. And, yeah, that was kind of like a funny story in studio. Nothing happened. At the end of that, a couple days later, kid kind of gave us some respect and, appreciated us. And it was almost like we slayed the big bag dragon and became the heroes of the radio station. Everyone was like, yo, no one likes that dude. Thank you so much for putting him in his place. And then after that, he started coming in that studio, not when we were there. If we were there, he would mind his P's and Q's, and over time kind of warmed up to him. And we had a decent – we weren't friends by any stretch, but there was a respect there on his side, and we kind of saw what he was doing and, gave him a little bit of a nod. But, yeah.
Just classic standing up to a bully, right?
Yep.
Essentially. All right, let's I'm going to be respectful of your time, but before I get into my little rapid-fire questions, do you guys have either individually or collectively, I think it's called the wild, hairy-ass goal, like some big, huge, audacious goal for the next iteration of your podcast, or you guys physically, or the next 12 months? Hey, here's something we're really trying to do.
I want a silver play button on YouTube. And that is a big, wild-ass, hairy-ass goal because we have about 927 subs on YouTube. That's my big, wild, hairy-ass goal. I don't know if it's happening the next year. That would be pretty epic. Maybe I need to start talking better about it, and I'll manifest that. But that is my big, hairy-ass goal for Aerie Bros Radio.
You want to have a silver play button?
Yeah, that means 100,000 subs.
100,000.
Yes.
Roger that. Okay. Rich?
I want to take Airy Bros on the road. We have met a lot of amazing coaches along the way, people like yourself, the other gym owners and coaches all across the country. I started traveling in 2010, and then Jimi followed suit after me in 2015. So we've always had a bit of wanderlust and being a little bit different in terms of living in different locations. And so I would like to have, if not a home base, where we're traveling, 1, 2, 3 times a week to cover events, wrestling matches, track meets, cross-country races, on-site stuff, gym tours, kind of like MTV Cribs for gyms. If not having a home base, then having an RV or a Sprinter van that's built out, and taking the podcast on the road, but then also doing more video coverage of, like I said, races, ultra marathons, wrestling matches, interviews with coaches on site and that sort of stuff, and really being able to support what we do through what we do, and not have to, as much as I love being a physical education teacher and a strength and conditioning coach, I would love to be a digital nomad or a digital gypsy.
That'd be fun. You guys already live where my wife wants to live. Her happy place is Colorado, up in the mountains. She likes Frisco, which is near Breckenridge.
Good spot.
I work
and
there.
Summit County, and so when we were just dating, and we're like 40. I'm 40. She's 42, I think. She took me there, and I'm in the lifting world, right? I had left the endurance world, my level endurance, half marathons, and I'm there less than 24 hours, and we're in Frisco, and she wants to take me on this hike for Lower Mohawk Lake, which starts at 10,000 feet, ends around 12, and I get to the top of where we're going, and she sits down and opens up the bag for some food, and I kind of just walk right by her, and I go sit down maybe 10, 15 yards down by the water. And she goes, "What? You're not going to sit by me?" I go, "I'm not going to sit by you right now. I need 5 to 6 minutes. I'm going to sit over here. I'm going to stare at the water. And I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to have an apple. Okay? So I'm going to calm down over here. And then we'll be good again. And then we're going to head down this mountain and get back home." And that was my introduction to hiking in the mountains with my wife. And we've been back many times. It's been great.
So, Jim, not to slow you down on kind of how you got the podcast going, but just to give you a moment in Aerie Bros history, I was driving Rich back out to California on I-70. He was going back out there to live, and we decided to stop in a little town that neither one of us have ever heard of before called Frisco. And right there's those trails by Peak 1, by the Whole Foods and everything. We stop. We decide to, I don't know, run 45 minutes on this trail. We don't think anything of it. Oh, wow, that was a really cool town, like high altitude kind of feeling. It couldn't run too fast. Then you go on with our way. Always remember Frisco. Well, we lived in Leadville, Colorado, like Rich has stated. And then when we lived in Leadville, Colorado, a town that I went to every day for 7 months was Frisco, because I worked at the Whole Foods. And then that summer, I was on that trail every day, running, going up towards Peak 1. Mount Royal, I think, is the smaller one that I would go to all the time. It's like, it's a mile, 2.5 miles, but it is like
straight up
the most vertical you could think of. And to me, being a kid who, it took me, I don't know, 6 years to get back to that point from that initial time being there, that was always just like, okay, like that was a little goal. No one's ever going to think of that as a goal, but for someone who never thought they were going to leave their hometown, and I got to do it, and then I got to be in Frisco all that time, that was like a little like solid for me.
Yeah, there's this 10-mile creek there. They call it 10-mile creek, and then there's Lake Dillon, and we would hike up and down there. Then we would also travel over to Breckenridge and hike. Then we would always go for this barbecue festival right around Father's Day, that week leading up to it. And she always wanted to go to that barbecue festival, and we go hike in the morning, then have barbecue, drink beers in the afternoon, and have a great time. I'll tell her you mentioned Frisco. She'll have to listen to this episode now for sure. Anything, whether you're running the gym or you're running along, what do you guys listen to?
Jim?
We're very eclectic, Jim. We're very all over the place. It's kind of time and space for me. I kind of like to listen to some stuff that I grew up on. Butt Rock's getting big again. Creed's getting big again. I love stuff like that. I love pop punk, emo stuff. I also love some of the hippy dippy stuff. Kind of make me feel like I'm in the mountains. Not necessarily jam band type, Trevor Hall type, kind of like hippie spiritual stuff. I like to listen to a lot of solfeggio frequencies, a lot of different hertz, kind of a lot of spa massage music, kind of put me in a good place. Some lo-fi, some retro wave. I'm into dance music because of my older brother. I'm sure that's one of his answers. A little bit of everything. Just depends on my mood. One thing I try to do these days is not listen to anything with vulgar lyrics, anything kind of like a little too aggressive. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me some Slipknot, some music like that, but I have to put myself on a diet. Same thing with rap. I really can't listen to it all the time or I get angry.
For me specifically at the gym, or on the trails, I'm either doing country music or I'm doing house music. Very, very different states, but those are kind of where I've been living lately these days. And down here in the South, it's easy to convince people to put on country music at the gym, and a couple people kind of look, but a lot of people get into it. So
awesome. What's a bucket list location or adventure that you haven't been to or done yet that you think, hey, that'd be cool, I want to do that?
So India, Like I told you before, a little woo-woo. Kind of want to go meet some spiritual beings, kind of see some people with some superpowers who haven't eaten in 20 years and levitate and are covered in ash. Definitely everyone I've ever met that's been to India is like, you don't want to go there. It's a trash palace. It's disgusting. There's too many people. It's gross. But I want to go, not necessarily hike the Himalaya mountains, maybe do some foot paths around there, around those areas, but definitely want to experience that.
Vacation destination would be Ibiza. And for a new location to live, it would be, top of the list would probably be Flagstaff.
Arizona, gotcha.
Arizona for me as well, or Ecuador.
Man, a little warm for those places. I'm a big boy, it's hard. But we took some of our kids to Arizona on spring break for Grand Canyon and some other hikes, and just gorgeous country out there. How about a sport movie? You have a favorite?
Well, you brought it up before. Without Limits is one of them.
Right.
And then Vision Quest.
I cheered for shooting that one.
We had him on the podcast.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yes, that's right. Yeah. He had to cut weight multiple times. He had kept going back and forth. Yeah, that's right. You said that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I wanted him to
I would
win.
add one more to that, in addition to either Without Limits or Prefontaine and Vision Quest, but I would also add Running Brave, and that's the story of Billy Mills. He is the only American to ever win the 10,000 meter. He won at the 1964 Olympics. It's his life story.
Dang. Okay. Running Brave. Got it. Favorite athlete?
Prefontaine. Growing up, definitely someone who I always looked up to. Now, there's a bunch of obscure college wrestlers I can name right now.
Sure.
But Steve Prefontaine.
All right.
Yeah, I would also say this might be a little controversial. Some people might not like this, but I would put Lance Armstrong up there.
Gotcha. The thing about performance enhancing drugs is that it gives you a little bit. Like steroids helps you recover, and they talk about this in West Side versus the World. But you still have to hold the intensity, right? You still got to push, right? You still have to be in pain with that weight on your back or that time domain where you're just suffering up those hills in France, right, or wherever else. So, yeah, there's help, right? I get that. But you still got to be able to handle that pain threshold, which is staggering, right? Favorite? You have a book you guys like?
Most recently, the book I wrote was written by one of our guests, Ron Mann. He was a coach at Northern Arizona, and he wrote a book about the history of the program. They're a NCAA Division I dynasty right now. They've won probably 5 of the last 6 or 7 NCAA cross-country titles, and so he was one of the first coaches in the history of the program. So that book was really, really good. I got it on a Monday, and I was done with it by Wednesday night. I couldn't put it down.
Awesome.
Dan Gable's last season, I believe it's called Season on the Mat. It's all about the 1997 NCAA championship that they won. Rich gave that to me my senior year in high school, and I am not a reader to this day. I'm still not a reader. I'm an audio book guy. I have a membership to Audible. I despise reading. Like, I don't like being in group text messages. When people put me in big group text messages, I have a reading disability, reading comprehension, just never my thing. Like, I just don't like reading, but I read that book pretty quick, and I've read that book at least 4 or 5 times since then.
Dang, I know he has 2 biographies or autobiographies. I read both of those and have them, but I did not read about that season.
Yeah, it's a good one.
The next question is, do you have a favorite superhero or villain? And people always seem to assume I mean like from the comic books, like X-Men and Marvel. And I said, well, to give you an idea, like my favorite villain in stories is Hannibal Lecter, right? So, but the guy I had on last week, he had he's a power lifter and he had some people in his family that were like on Broadway and playwrights, and all his heroes are in his family. So, do you guys have I don't care, right? I just care, Chad. Do you have a favorite hero or villain?
I don't know if it's a favorite, but I'm fascinated with Phil Knight because he seems to fit both the categories of being a hero and also being a villain. And I've read his book, Shoe Dog. I've read Swoosh, which is the unauthorized biography about Nike. There's another book I just read. It's called Out There or Out of Nowhere, which is written by one of their first employees, Jeff Hollister. And I'm just fascinated with the rise of Nike and what they were able to do from selling ASIC Tigers out of the back of their car and taking Bill Bowerman's designs and making their own shoes and turning it into a multi-billion-dollar corporation that has done some amazing things for sport, but then also can do some really crappy things to people, turn their backs on them, maybe not have the highest quality of employment standards overseas and those sorts of things. So right now, that's my current favorite hero and villain.
Nice. Awesome.
So it's a movie character. I don't necessarily if you would think this person is a hero, but a movie that came into my life when I needed it a lot. The Big Lebowski, the dude.
The dude.
I have a tattoo that says Abide. I took that movie to heart. I took that character to heart. I needed it at that time in my life where I kind of just needed to abide and go with the flow and laugh at stupid things in life. There's a whole, I don't know if you know, Jim, but there's a religion based off that called Dudism. I wouldn't say I believed in it, but I know all the funny quirks, all the, I'm finishing my coffee over the line, all the little niche meetings. The dude.
Awesome. Where can everybody find you guys?
Go to our YouTube. Go to Aerie Bros on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Airy Bros Radio. Go get all your endurance coaching needs taken care of by Rich at blacksheependurance.com. Follow Rich at 100 Mile Dick on Instagram, at Richard Aery on Facebook. Follow me at Prince James 1512 on Instagram. Anything I missed there, Rich?
Podcast is available on all streaming platforms, whether it's through iTunes or Spotify, Google Play or Plus or whatever, you name it, it's out there. So every Monday night and Thursday evening, we get new audio releases.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad we were able to make this happen. There's a little bit of challenges to secure it, but I was grateful to be on yours show and really benefited, and I just really enjoyed the time sharing with you guys. I really appreciate the authenticity and the realness and the willingness to make an impact with your knowledge and effort. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us, Jim. It was an honor.
Yeah, Jim, it's good seeing you again, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys. Till next time.